Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Caritas Charles, and I'm the Policy Insight and Innovation Manager here at TPAS. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of a health warning. I have participated and have looked into the methods that we're going to look at today, but I am not an expert. But what I will do is include in the mail out of the presentation links for you to play around with some of the stuff that I've discovered. So hopefully you'll get some out this session. Um, there is a large number. We've crept to 109 participants at this session. And there is a bit of interactivity, but please bear in mind there's a lot of people here. So it's going to be difficult to get everyone's opinions across. I will try some breakout rooms, but if you have got a point to raise or a question to raise, please keep it snappy to the point, because we want to hear from you as well, your ideas of innovation. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen and have a look at what we're going to be doing today for the next hour and a half or so. So let's go to share. So can I just check from my colleagues or anybody in the room, can you just see the screen
Yeah,
without
perfect,
notes?
Caritas. Yeah, looks
Fabulous,
great.
thank you, Lisa. Okay, so this is creative methods of engagement. And what we're going to look at today is three specific areas of engagement that I've done some research into. Hopefully, by the end of this webinar, you'll begin to understand why innovation and engagement matters, explore three powerful engagement methods, and there's two examples I'll give in one, which is online engagement, and learn a bit about measuring the success and impact of engagement. But first off, this is where it could all go crucially wrong. I want to do a little bit of an online poll with you. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being good, how confident are you that your organization innovates when it comes to engagement? So I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute, and I'm going to try this new bit of technology I've learned. I'm sharing a poll. Now the poll will come up as untitled poll. So here we go. We'll relaunch. So you should have some options in front of you on a scale of 1 to 5. And the results are coming in now. And if you don't feel confident using the polling, then just put it into the chat. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. Then I'm going to end the poll. So can everyone see those results here? Roughly 45% of people have put in the kind of middling. 5% said not good at all. And about 9% have said they're really, really good. Now, when it comes to the discussion bit, I want to hear from you your really, really good methods, because this is partly what it's about. I'm going to highlight some of the things that we're doing, but that we found out, but actually sharing your own insight is really, really important. And 23% kind of said just off really good. So let me go back to sharing my screen again. Why do we need innovation We need innovation desperately in social housing, but we don't just need it in social housing. We need it as a country. Um, Many people have said that when it comes to engagement, people feel done onto rather than actually have their opinion valued and their opinion mattered. There's an interesting thing here from the Hansard Society is that 78% of people in the UK want more say in local decision making. And I think that's equally an indication, as it says here, that the tenant satisfaction measures show similar satisfaction gaps, but also similar demand for a say. I've been in rooms with people where they quite often say, well, tenants just aren't interested. I really dispute that. I think people are interested and do want a more active say in the homes and the services they receive. And only 15% of people, I think that's a shocking number, feel their views influence outcomes. And I think, and also another thing that we should say is that one of the things that really comes across in engagement is the lack of active communication. So people get asked for their opinions, they don't necessarily know what's being done with them. So that is a really shocking statistic there. So why do we need to innovate? As we mentioned, the actual bits that we've seen here, there is declining trust. There are cost of living pressures that mean that people want more of a say in things that affect their lives, whether it be their housing, whether it be their local authority, whether it be their electricity provider. People have said in surveys and in public discussions that they feel that there is a sense of powerlessness. Digital transformation, and I shall mention some good digital transformation options later, has enabled us to be more on the ball when it comes to engagement and use different methods that suit people's different needs and actually create a better understanding. And particularly relevant to the housing sector, there is a demand, a rightful demand for a post-Grenfell and AWAB's law accountability and voice. Tenants, quite rightly, are demanding more of a say in what goes on, and that's being backed up by legislation. That's being backed up by regulation and the enhanced powers for the ombudsman, enhanced powers in building safety, enhanced powers for the regulator. And there is, in the last 5 years, a sea change, I think, with regards to the importance of innovation in engagement. We do have a tendency, I think, sometimes in social housing to rely on the old faithful methods of engagement. But again, that only appeals to so many. What we often say here at TPAS is you need to offer a menu of opportunities for people to be engaged. People will be engaged in different parts of their lives at different times using different methods. Not everyone wants to be in a group. Not everybody wants to take part in a task and finish group or come along to an event, but they may answer a survey. They may take an information leaflet when it comes down to it. So there is lots of different options out there, and we'll look at some of them and look at how they can be used to successfully engage. One of the principles of great engagement, and I've kind of narrowed it down, there are lots of models of what makes great engagement, but I think that firstly, it has to be inclusive. It needs to reach unheard voices. And there's a bit of dispute of using the word unheard voices. I think there's an argument that those voices are shouting out there. We're just not using the right um, tools to get those voices across and get their influence into the mix. It has to be able to reach out to everybody. And also, landlords need to understand their tenant base and who they are. And a lot of the reports we're getting back from the regulator state that some of the things for the C3 and C4 and housing providers that get judged on a lower level is that they don't really have an understanding of their tenant base and who tenants are. And part of that is finding different ways to reach out to different people. Another thing I would add is it has to be transparent as well. There has to have clear purpose and outcomes. People need to know that their opinion matters and something has actually happened with their opinion. As I said earlier, a lot of feedback I get from people is they get asked for their opinion and they never get told what's done with it. That needs to change. So that comes to the reciprocal element. That comes to what basically, as you said, we did. What is that journey? How did we make that impact? How did what we say make a difference? And if our opinions weren't taken on board, why weren't they taken on board and used effectively? We need to be aware of this. It needs to be accessible. We no longer can expect people just to come to the housing office or come to an event that we put on in a remote location. We need to be where people are. We need to be where people are having those conversations. From my personal experience, I used to go to everything from setting up a stall in a cafe, standing outside a shop, working at a church social. There's got to be that dialogue. There is a requirement for landlords to be part of the community. And when it comes to engagement, we need to be where people are. We shouldn't expect people to come to us. And any solutions and any engagement, the watchword is it has to be co-created. It has to be decisions made with, not for people. Better outcomes happen where everyone's involved. We had a scrutiny session earlier on this morning, and we were talking about that triangle. And I was going to nickname it the triangle of trust. It's between the landlords, the regulators, government decision makers, and tenants. If you don't have all sides of that triangle covered, then you can't get really successful long-term solutions that the housing sector faces. So when we look to innovate in engagement, we need to make sure that that inclusive, transparent, reciprocal, accessible, and co-created engagement is all part of the mix. So let me stop and go to another poll. Which principles of good engagement does your organization do? Mark as many as apply to you. So I'm just going to launch another poll now. So you can put as many choices as you like. Do you think your landlord is inclusive, transparent, reciprocal, accessible? Do they co-create with you? People are giving some thoughts, more answers here, so I'll give it a bit more time. So we're looking at inclusive, transparent, reciprocal, accessible, co-created. You could, of course, have none of those. I hope you have some. Oh, creeping up, people thinking, right, do a countdown. 10, 9, 8, I'm not. Okay, let's end the poll there. Share the results. So interestingly, 73% of people say accessible, say that they feel that their provider goes out to them. Transparent, interesting. Reciprocal, interesting again. Interesting again. Only 44% of people think that. So let's look at that. Right. Let's stop sharing. This will help inform the next bit. Oh, start from the beginning again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick breakout into smaller groups. And I want you to share within your smaller groups one example of engagement that inspired you in or outside housing. It could be something that you've done inside housing. It could be something that you've seen a campaign of something that really inspired you, or a way that people actually talk to you in a local club or event. What I want you to do is look at that and come back. And what I'll do is I'll pick on one or two people that are up for sharing. So we're just going to spend 5 minutes looking at that. I'll split you up into groups. Please say if you're not totally sure what we're talking about. Right, breakout rooms. There's 121 of us. Varying levels of success. So.
Oh, we're back.
We're back. Yes, we're back.
We were mid-sentence then, Caritas.
I know, I am so sorry. I like the power, but I like sometimes when you just cut someone off their prime. And this was a really good example. And then I went, and it's,
that's too much power that you have, Caritas.
I know, I should be stopped. You know, I use my powers for evil. It's terrible.
Especially me.
Right. That worked with varying levels of success, lots of people about. So hopefully for those who managed to work it out, you shared some examples. And what'd be really interesting is if you could indicate with your hands up, if we could pick on one or two people who'd be really interested in sharing their example of something that really inspired them with engagement. Doesn't necessarily have to be in housing. But if anyone wanted to share, that would be great. Terry, you have your hands raised. Go for it, Terry. You're on mute now, Terry.
I thought I'd put my hand up first because there were only a couple of us that could actually speak as part of our thing. So what we said was, one of the groups, one of the organizations is looking at how they combat loneliness over Christmas and looking at mentoring and companionship. And then a couple of us do something quite similar in that we get hampers together for people who maybe have been homeless or are homeless. And we were saying that some of us do normal hampers and bits and bobs for children. And I was saying that we, as an organization, ask staff to bring in things like socks and pants and deodorant and sanitary products and things like that, as well as boxes of biscuits and chocolates. So people have got something to actually open on Christmas Day, but something that is something that they wouldn't normally go out and buy for themselves. So we can give them nice little gifts. So that's what we basically talked about in our group.
That's fantastic. I mean, I love something like that, that is a personal level of engagement. And, you know, it's not going to change the world, but what it changes is that individual person's world. And that's what's really, 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 really vital. And the engagement doesn't have to be massive. It can be personal. It can be that individual interaction you're having with a person that can make a world of difference. Does anybody else want to share? James, go on.
One of the panel, one of the guys in the room with us, mentioned the fact that they look at various people with all the different, sight impairments or hearing impairments, and they actually have got together to work with those now, to the extent of seeing how they can do with easy read and things like this, how they can accommodate that. And I think the thing was to say, if I'm correct, and walking them around the building and showing the building, and then looking to see what about the signage and everything, and working on putting signage up and making, walking around the place much more mobile friendly for them. So I thought that was a great one.
Fantastic. That's a really good example. Again, something that has benefits to wider people, but also the individual.
They all seem to be working the same, but when I asked about digital inclusion, in terms of like at Taurus, we're given, like I'm talking to you now, this laptop was given to me, gifted to me. I have a tablet because I'm on the Landlord Operations Committee as well. So anybody who's involved, we have IT courses which will assist you in that. But the ReachDeck system that I got introduced, which was for translation and everything like that. Now that's great because it means you can translate. If English isn't your first language, you can have numerous languages translated. So again, it makes it more tight and more inclusive. And they have all these away day outs, and fun days within the tenant groups from different communities and different nationalities to bring them into it, so it becomes truly the tourist heartland.
Lovely, fantastic. One more. If there's one more around, does someone like to share? I can't see everyone's screen, so speak up. Andy from EMH. Hiya.
Hiya. We mentioned everything across the board, from the normal emails, etc. Knocking on doors itself, libraries, doing game sessions. But one person was using virtual reality, which I thought was, the ultimate. When you're looking at the digital world, you get a headset on people and get them to walk around an estate or a building. Must have been a wonderful session to be involved in.
That's fascinating. Virtual reality. Does the person who uses virtual reality want to say who they are and how they use it?
Yeah, hi, afternoon, everyone. It was a project I'd worked on previously at a previous organisation. What it was a bit of a joint project between ourselves and the retirement team, because virtual reality's got some benefits for people with dementia. So we got some headsets and we went into our retirement schemes. So we get sort of 20, 30 people in the room and have half a dozen headsets. And as people waited for their turn on virtual reality, we'd do consultations, ask them about services. So it was kind of the hook to get people in and engage with them, perhaps people that wouldn't come out through the front doors, but also the element of virtual reality was something new, something different, so it sparked their interest. And like I say, it sort of ticked the box in terms of supporting the dementia work that the teams were doing as well at the time. And we'd have all sorts of different programs on there. They could sort of look at places they went on holiday 50, 60 years ago, look at where their old houses used to be on Google Earth and all these sorts of things. So it was a really good way. You got quite a lot of people in who wouldn't normally come out to those sorts of sessions, and whilst they wait for their turn, in quite a conversational style, would do sort of engagement without really knowing they were doing engagement. So we're sitting there chatting with them, it was quite informal. So that was one that worked quite well for me previously.
Fantastic. I saw someone, Gemma, who put their hands up and down. Did you want to share?
Yeah, more to avoid the awkward silence than anything, but yeah, I just want to kind of shout out to what Christine at Stroud District Council was saying about the cafe conversations, which feel a bit more informal. And she was saying, it was great to get people talking, and I can kind of vouch for what she was saying. There's something about engagement needing to be enjoyable for people to want to come out in the first place. And I think that probably speaks to what we were just hearing about the virtual reality thing. It's offer something good and fun and enjoyable, and while you're there, jump on the opportunity to do something really meaningful as well.
Totally agree. And I'll share one of my best engagement experiences when I was working in community engagement at Alliance Homes. We did surveys of tenants during a free family cinema day, where we would bus families in from across the area, give everyone popcorn, and before the film started, we'd do surveys about service provision, what people thought about Alliance Homes. And it was a great way of getting 300 people of all ages into one venue to talk about the services they receive. And was an absolutely fantastic thing. And we often had waiting lists for people for that. But let me go back to the presentation. Thank you for sharing. Let me go back sharing my screen. So what we're going to look at now is I'm going to take you through 3 Innovative, it's been done, methods of engagement. I'm going to give you an example of arts-based engagement. I'm going to give you 2 examples of online and digital participation. And I'm going to look at participatory, what is called participatory or deliberative methods. Now, some of you may know these as citizens' assemblies or citizen juries. So let's start with arts-based engagement. And I'm going to look at an organization that I've had some experience knowing a bit about called Cardboard Citizens. Cardboard Citizens is a UK theatre company working with people who've experienced homelessness or housing insecurity. It uses the power of forum theatre and arts-based storytelling to amplify lived experience, influence policy, and inspire empathy across audiences from community halls to boardrooms. Now, forum theatre was practiced by a guy, and I know this because I used to do drama at school, called Augustus Boal, that believed in theatre of the oppressed. And he wanted ways to get people, particularly in areas of South America, which were facing extreme poverty, ways for them to express their life experience in a way that wasn't strictly for people who had the skills and the tools to actually be in boardrooms or committees talking about it. So what works in a forum theatre method is audience watch a performance depicting a real life housing or social justice challenge. They are then invited to stop the action at any one point, either step into the roles or advise the people acting in those roles what solutions they would do. This interactive format helps people explore complex issues safely and creatively. Now, I've seen this practically done when we worked at Alliance Homes on one of our estates where they publicly advertised an ASB dispute. Now, it wasn't anything too traumatic for people, but what they did was they said that they would have actors or people role-playing the various roles outside a shop, and members of the public could step in and actually say how they would resolve the situation within limits, because you did have some cheeky so-and-sos go, I'd go and punch the person or something like that. So it would be within limits of how you de-escalate the situation. And that was a great way to get people practically engaged in discussing an issue that's quite complex, quite sensitive, and worked really well, and had lots of support services on board for people who needed it afterwards. Now, the great thing about using performance or theatre is that co-creation performances are written, developed, and acted by people who actually experience what people are going through. And that allows for a really great personal, in-depth insight into what is going on. I've seen things that aren't necessarily just done as plays. I've seen people expressing themselves through music, through art, and other forms of expression and medium to actually get their point across. And it gives a lot of empowerment to people through storytelling. Participants gain confidence, voice, and agency through sharing their stories and exploring change collectively. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. Cardboard Citizens have had over 6,000 participants have engaged in their programs, and they've worked to influence government officials, housing staff, and policymakers. And what's really interesting is 80% of participants report improved confidence and well-being as a result of actually taking part in those processes. So what is the relevance to tenant engagement? As I mentioned earlier, it can be used as a participatory tool for exploring sensitive issues such as repairs, trust, and communication. It can provide a safe, creative environment for tenants and staff to share perspectives as well. And it helps boards and leaders understand lived experience through an emotional, immersive format. Sometimes what gets put into a report or what gets put into paper doesn't have the emotional heft, perhaps, of someone's lived experience with damp and mold, someone's lived experience with ASB, or someone's lived experience with a repairs issue. And it's about having that impact and thought for that as well. Another really good, useful one of using the arts or using creative expression is I know a few housing associations use the human library approach as well, where people share their individual stories. You can book out a person to share their experiences with you and talk to you on an individual basis. So this offers a model for arts-based tenant engagement that's co-designed, reflective, and transformational. The next thing I want to look at and address with you is online engagement. And I want to bring together two very different models of online engagement for you. And what may please some of the staff with budgets in the room, they're both free to use, completely free to use. One is Decidim and one is Polis. They do two very different things. Decidim, meaning we decide in Catalan, is an open source digital platform for participatory democracy. Originally developed by the city of Barcelona, it enables citizens to propose ideas, debate, prioritize, and monitor decisions, creating a transparent, traceable link between public input and institutional action. And this model, I've seen a mock-up of it, could really easily be used by any housing association. So what is their core approach? It's free to use. It's ethical, it's built on democratic principles. It's run by programmers who modify it and enhance it and maintain the security of it based on input from people who use the model. There is full data privacy, there's transparency and accountability, and it has a multi-tool platform. So within Decidim, you can have proposals that a landlord puts across or a tenant puts across. You can have them discussed, you can share documentation, you can propose, landlord can propose a pot of funding, which encourages different projects to be proposed that citizens then vote on. You can conduct surveys on it. You can do online assemblies where you discuss a particular topic or issue that you want input from. And you can also collaboratively draft documents. So if, for example, you've got a repairs policy or an online policy with regards to engagement, you can put those proposals together and you can actually invite input from people. Every idea has a visible decision chain showing how it evolves and what outcomes result from it. So again, looking at that transparency and accountability issue that we talked about earlier, you can actually say what part of the process it's on. And it's multi-layer engagement. It can operate at a local level, citywide level, regional level, or for an entire organization. The impact it's had as a platform is it's used in over 40 countries by cities and organizations to run their engagement. Barcelona, who invented the model, saw over 40,000 residents submit on votes and ideas worth over 75 billion euros. It's also gone on to be adopted by Helsinki, Mexico City, and Brussels for city engagement in urban policy. And I know it's also been taken up by the city of Los Angeles as well. And it's been praised by the United Nations as a benchmark for open digital governance. And did I also mention it was free? I will be providing links for it later on, so you can just go on and have a try yourself. And they're really accessible to people at Decidim if you've got any questions you want to ask about adopting the model yourselves. Yet to see a housing association do it. If you might be interested, then let me know. James, you got your hand up.
It's just like the Rosary, Roman Catholic Rosary, you know, the Christian Rosary, where you have the different mysteries and each one begin to tell you the story of what happens and what the outcome is as you go along. Seems to be a similar thought process to that.
Insightful.
From Spain, Barcelona, it's only across the way from Lourdes.
There you go. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Right. How it could work in social housing. So you could use models like Decidim to have a look at tenant proposals. Tenants could submit ideas on improvements, priorities, or community initiatives, and that can be debated by other tenants and also have input from staff. It has the opportunities for collective debate. Residents and staff can comment, support, and refine proposals collaboratively. It has voting and prioritization. Community votes determine which ideas advance. So it has that ownership, that reciprocity in there. And decision tracking. The system shows how decisions are made, budgets allocated, and progress delivered. Now, I could go on about Decidim and Polis for a long time. This is only giving you an oversight into what they can do. But if people are interested in us getting someone from either group to come and describe what it's about, then I'd be more than happy to. So what are the other benefits for social housing? It creates a transparent feedback chain. Tenants can see how their ideas and influence are influencing decisions. Encourages shared ownership of housing strategies and budgets. Enhances trust through openness and visibility. Supports participatory budgeting for community funds or estate improvements. Now, the next one, Polis, and do put the dot in between because otherwise you get a cryptocurrency. Polis is an innovative online engagement platform that enables large-scaled, structured public debate dialogue. It uses machine learning and real-time data visualization to map opinions, highlight consensus, and reveal where communities agree or disagree. The core approach is open participation. Anyone can join and contribute by voting on or submitting short statements. So, for example, let's look at an ASB issue, for example. You could put a proposal to say, I think, as using Polis, you could put a statement that said, I think it's perfectly reasonable for anyone to make as much noise as they like up until 10 o'clock in the evening. Someone using Polis can agree to that, or they could modify that and create a separate stream. So they could say, no, I don't believe that it's acceptable at all at any time. Or they could say, no, I think it should be only up until 5 o'clock. So, and then what you do is you create the consensus by all those different opinions that people have modified, and you try and find and pinpoint, and it allows you to report where the common ground is, where most people agree. So the AI-driven grouping will allow you to give a report, like I said, identifies clusters of agreement and difference automatically. So it enables you to do that and understand where there is common ground on a particular issue. It enables people to also see where their views align with others as well. So they can see the reports, not just the person running the actual consultation, but participants see how their views align with others, building empathy and awareness. And it has iterative dialogue. Organisers use the findings to shape decisions, policies, or further engagement stages. So it's a good way of getting a broad-based opinion of where there is potential agreement on an issue. Could be ASB, could be repairs, could be procurement of new services. The uses for this are limitless. The impact it's had, it's used by the government of Taiwan. Taiwan, if you want to know about innovation in public engagement, is probably one of the best countries on the planet. They actually have someone in the cabinet whose job is to look at best ways for citizens to engage with the public. It's also been used by Seattle City Council and the European Commission. It increases public trust and fairness in decision-making, and it engages in thousands with polarization common in social media. So it helps to take away those preconceived ideas and bring in some consensus building. which in a world where we are quite often divided is quite impactful. So how can it work in social housing? You could look at topic definition, defining a question. How can we improve communication as a landlord? How can we improve in communication about repairs, for example? And also, one of the best ones on communication, you may have seen the thing lately that 90% of tenants are completely unaware what a TSM is. Wouldn't it be great to use a model like this to actually highlight what people know about TSM and how we can communicate it effectively? Open participation, tenants and staff submit and vote on short statements anonymously. So it enables people to contribute to the debate. It enables to build consensus. AI group participants by shared perspectives can be grouped together, and you can then lead that on to other sort of more individual face-to-face working with people that agreed on a consensus approach, and you can shape it into a policy or shape it into a project or shape it into an action. And also shows where the tension points are, where people are quite polarized and disagree. So you can work on that to find solutions. That could be particularly useful in finding consensus where there's disputes in the states, for example. And there's a feedback loop. Results are visualized in dashboards and fed back to participants. So what are the benefits for social housing? It engages large, diverse tenant audiences online. Very simple to do. You can answer whatever questions you like. Someone could do it on their phone on the way to work. Someone could do it on the phone on the way to dropping the kids off. Very accessible. Encourages honest input without fear of judgment. Anonymous. You can moderate it for offensive stuff, but it's anonymous what you actually put in. And it builds a collective voice highlighting shared priorities. It supports data-driven decision-making for boards and service teams, so they can see real-life opinion from tenants on the board and mapping where the consensus and divisions lie. And again, like Decidim, totally free. And I've been to a presentation from People and Polis. Again, if it's something we'd like to see more of, I'll see what I can arrange. Let me know. Now, finally, the third model I want to talk about is deliberative engagement. Now, these are more common known. Some of you may have known of things like citizens' assemblies, citizens' panels, citizen juries, things like that. And what are they? They are deliberative assemblies bringing together a representative group of residents to learn, discuss, and make recommendations on complex local issues. These forums are increasingly used by cities across Europe to involve citizens in governance at the neighbourhood or municipal level. Representative core approach, you get a representative bunch of tenants to reflect the tenant body. Structured learning. Now, for people who have done task and finish groups in scrutiny, this might sound a bit familiar. Participants receive briefings from experts and community leaders. Facilitated deliberation, small groups discuss, encourage dialogue, encourage trade-offs, which means discussing what could be possible, what might not be possible, what you might have to give up to make a project or a proposal possible, and also understanding where everyone's coming from, tenants, landlords, etc. Recommendation formation, consensus recommendations or ranked priorities are reported to decision makers. So you don't necessarily, with deliberative democracy, have to agree on everything. You could say the majority agreed with this, the minority disagreed, the minority supported this option, the majority disagreed, but it encapsulates all the information. And it's transparency and feedback. Outcomes from any of these kind of democratic deliberative events are publicly shared, showing how citizens' input and influence the policies they receive. So how could it work in a housing issue? You need to define the scope. So you could select a housing issue like estate regeneration, service improvement, safety on an estate. You need to recruit participants. That's again where you organisations that know their tenant body and what is a representation of their tenant body would do better. It enables you to provide briefings, share evidence as a landlord, look at the landlord perspective and have relevant case studies. It gives an opportunity for residents to discuss options, as said, and it also looks at the feedback loop area and recommendations. What is good about these deliberative methods is they build trust, legitimacy, and transparency by involving everyone in the process. And they've looked at really tricky issues like climate change and stuff on a national level, but they've really managed to look at building the trust. And it's great when you get people with differing opinions in a room trying to form a consensus. It develops that level of understanding that we don't necessarily get from answering a survey or making a comment on social media. It engages tenants rarely involved in traditional consultation because it's very proactive and you get to see the results quite quickly. It encourages a much diverser age range. And when I've done work on this personally, compared to standing tenant groups, the average age of person I've worked with has dropped by about 35 years because people have been more inclined to do a one-off than being part of a standing group. And it generates considered actionable recommendations because you're in an environment with people who have varying opinions to you, and it makes you, through deliberative discussion, able to come up to a consensus opinion that everyone can agree on. And it creates a model for continuous participatory engagement. It encourages others to get involved because they can see their actions immediately. So what does success look like? I'm actually going to stop it here and just spend, let me just have a look at time, just a little bit of time gathering what people think of the individual options that we went through. Do any appeal? Do any see any problems with them? Please share with me.
Oh, Caritas, I think the first two, the two platforms sound brilliant. I'd love TPAS to get them in and give us an actual demonstration that we could actually be involved in to see how it works.
Yeah, definitely. I think they can really work in housing. I'm quite excited by them. And the fact that they're free is really quite a big incentive. James, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just think it's basically like going back to the days of the Senate, isn't it, in Rome with the consensus and everything like that, you know, going back to democracy, really, to the true sense. I like the idea of it. In fact, some of the words are actually coming from that, aren't they? Polis and things like that, you know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, good idea. If it could work. But I think really, if you look at scrutinies and things in that, you know, you get the leads in to come and talk to you. You try to get them. I've always believed in majority rules, always, you know, majority opinion. Reasonable, same as in the courts, isn't it? 12 men in true is the idea that you get them to decide on our behalf and we stand by their judgment. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way these days, sadly. But that's basically it, isn't it?
Yes. Andy's made a really good point about deliberative democracy. It can be done badly if people have pre-agendas. So it can be used in a way that people try and determine the outcome. But I would argue that's probably the case in any form of engagement.
Human nature.
What you have to do is you have to ensure that the people doing it know what they're doing and also do it in a very neutral and independent way as well. But Andy made a very good point. Someone also made a very good point in the chat as well with regards to these online platforms and use of people who aren't particularly familiar with technology. That is always going to be a problem. What I've seen with some of these deliberative platforms, particularly Polis, is that people have gone into places like community centres where there isn't necessarily an amount of access to the internet, or where people have been identified as problems using the internet and have sat down and have gone through it with them or instructed them on how to do it, then left it with them. So there are ways around that as well, but it's a really fair point. Online things are always going to miss out a section of communities that aren't particularly online engaged. Does anybody else have any comments on those different methods? Sorry, James, I'll let you.
I was just going to say very quickly, which is a point that Alicia made, which I totally agree with. Surely it depends on the consensus of the panel you've got of what their views are. So you might find it weighed in favour of disability issues, aid in adaptation, let's say, in one way. But if you've got another group of people, they may load it towards, well, actually, that's not the housing's responsibility. It's more towards that. So I think it very much depends on the makeup of the group that you've got representative involved.
Anybody else? Okay, let's go back.
Just say,
go on, Angela.
Yeah. The one thing that you said right at the beginning is about trust, and whenever these got these new things, they sound so exciting and so wonderful. And if they are tenant led, then you will get the engagement, but you could also use them very easily to get an approval of an idea that's nothing to do with tenants. And that's the really sad thing, is you must have the trust at the beginning to see that this technology can be used to really get consensus and to really get co-creation. Thank you.
Very, very, very good point. And that's a sort of key caveat I think you need to say, that let's not look at innovation just for the sake of innovation. Let's look at it to build that trust. Let's look at it on how we work with everyone that's going to be involved, you know, from the governing board, staff, tenants, on developing that trust in any innovative solution to engagement. You are totally right. If that isn't there, then it's never going to work. Alicia, you have a point.
Yeah, sorry, I'm very tired this morning, Caritas, after being told not to talk anymore by you.
Feel free now. Bye.
Yeah, I think Angela makes a brilliant point, and it is about co-production. And the one thing that we are trying to move on, I'm involved with a few people, James, Sue, and other people involved in national tenant representation, and we are still struggling. It's where we need to be at the very beginning. It's not proper involvement if we are involved when our landlord has already sat in an office for 2 months deciding what we're going to talk about. We need to be the ones setting the agenda. And just interestingly enough, my favourite topic of the claims farmers, I just at the weekend spoke to a lawyer involved in trying to do something about it. And we are actually, he said, we're setting up a group with solicitors, surveyors and tenant groups. They're the 3 groups that we're going to be setting up to actually look and have this discussion and come to some, you know, get some solutions. And I think we need to move away from the traditional, which have their place, don't get me wrong, they have their place, but we need to look at innovation. And my plea would be for our landlords to appreciate and understand that we can actually offer something extra, which would make things a lot better for everyone.
Thank you. Right. And a very good point from Izzy. Technology should be an add-on face-to-face interaction. Add-on to face-to-face interaction. We're humans after all. Totally agree. Totally agree. I don't agree with Mr. Musk that we should all be in that field of human endeavor machines. But yes, thank you. You know, that's a really good point. Right, let me just share the next bits. Then I got another topic of discussion for you. So what does success look like, I think, when we're innovating or using any form of engagement? I think we need to move beyond attendance numbers. And I think this is exactly what Alicia just put, to influence and impact. What do I see as core measures? I see reach. Are diverse voices being included? Do participants shape the decisions? And I think, again, that's what's made in points earlier. Are you just approving or disapproving of a ready-made package? Or are you actually shaping how it works? Trust, that word that we're hearing a lot. You know, it has to be the foundation of any good engagement from the start. Do people feel heard, but do people also feel part of the process? And action, what changed as a result? Was there any point? Was the engagement for the sake of engagement, or was actually something about to happen for what has been done? I don't know if I touched a funny bone there, Angela.
Oh, yes.
Right, let's move on. We need to be embedding learning to sustain innovation. And it goes back to that cultural word again, building organization culture that values experimentation. I know how hard it is when I've worked as an engagement officer in a housing association, that the demands that you face. And I know working with tenants to actually experiment, it takes time, and the results may not be known for a long, long time, and they may not work instantly. You know, let's not be afraid to experiment with new ideas, try them, and not have them work. Let's look at how we can tweak things, do things differently. You know, we may have success 1 time out of 10, but we'll learn from the 9 times that we didn't get it right. So let's try and experiment. We need to upskill staff, but not just staff, everybody working in the process, tenants as well, in creative and deliberative methods, in new ways of engaging, using the arts, using technology, using deliberative methods. Why can't we have that as part of the skill sets for training in housing? Should we design, co-design evaluation with tenants? What is the impact? Again, using that stuff we talked about. What does success look like? What does good engagement look like? Should we evaluate all the initiatives that we're doing against frameworks that enable us to actually have successful engagement? And what we've been doing today, we need to start sharing more where our best practice works. If you're proud of what you've done, if you think it's made a real impact, then please share it with others. Share it within your own regional network. Share it with TPAS nationally. Sue's about to say something about a WhatsApp group, I'm thinking. Go on, Sue.
Oh, no, I wasn't. I was actually saying, actually, we can see that TPAS have innovated over the last few months, with Megan now actually producing in real time notes from these sessions that anybody that couldn't attend can actually find them literally within minutes. It's also, if you've attended and haven't quite understood it, or you didn't write it down and you can't quite think what it was, we're able to go and get it straight away and start posting in our own organisations. It is such a great tool, and you know, it shows that TPAS are innovating as well. I suppose you don't know anything about it, Caritas.
Oh no, not me. So yes, share those discussions from your own networks. What I'm asking now is I'm going to try again. Actually, I'm going to do this first and say thank you for what you've done. No, I'm not. I'm going to do this. We're going to talk in groups. So I'm going to put you into groups again, and I'll discuss what are your plans to energize and innovate your engagement. Have you been inspired by the last hour? Have you not at all? Have you already got something in your head? So I'm going to ask for about 10 minutes. I'm going to stop sharing. Is there one action for you in 2026 you're going to do that's different to what you've done before? Doesn't have to be anything massive. It could be about using Teams more, using technology more. It could be about, I'm going to go to my local coffee morning and talk to other people. What things are you going to do to energize and engage with your engagement. So let's just go to breakout rooms. I'm going to.
I can tell you what I'm going to be doing, Caritas.
Go on then.
I have been speaking to some of the IT bods that I meet along the way, because I want us to have, as tenants, I want us to have a kind of virtual proxy tenant attending conferences, because we can't all get to all conferences because of money, disability, various other things we've got, going on. But so I want us to have a proxy attendee so that we get an idea of what's being said in the at conferences, and also that we can, pretty much like we do on here, we can put things in the chat and they can go into the conference rooms. And I've been pestering Matt Baird over at Social, the Housing Roundtable, and another guy, and I've been really pestering about this, and they've said this. I said, you did all this stuff in lockdown, why is it all shut down? And they've said there is actually no reason it can't be done, and they've said if I keep pestering them, they'll see if they can come up with something.
Excellent. Okay, James, I see.
Yeah, I was going to recommend Harry or Pauli to come in and tell you. That's all I was going to say from our group. They seem to have some great definite ideas for the future. It's looking really bright with these two guys. So I'd like them to come in and talk.
Brilliant. David.
Yeah, in 2026, I was asking Caritas Childs at TPAS to look at bringing in an energy specialist to come and talk to ourselves and yourself, and perhaps we can get a bit of an insight over the energy sector, the big things going on. Obviously, we've got GB electric coming through. We have a lot more regulation coming through. Sizewell C is now being built down here in Suffolk. Renewable energies are coming in. Solar panels are quite big at the moment. These things are all impacting on the housing sector. Maybe look at the energy bills. What can be done? What can tenants do to maybe improve? But obviously, I'll have to speak to Caritas and see what he thinks.
David, my memories are sieve, so drop me an email. That'd be great. I love that your thing for 2026 is to give me homework. That's fantastic. Sue, you're next.
Just trying to find my mic. So I'm currently doing a neighbourhood plan and a nature recovery strategy. And in my community, we've got flats where the people in the flats don't actually sort of integrate with the rest of the residents. So I'm seeing this as like an add-on to that project and actually solving two problems at the same time.
Fabulous. And another Sue. Oh, sorry, Sue,
and with regards to Alicia's comment, I can see this is an income stream for TPAS because there are an awful lot of us that are actually disabled. It's too far to travel, it's too tiring, or you've got caring responsibilities. And to be able to actually join one of your conferences and actually sort of do this type of platform for a small fee, I'm sure you could actually start sort of making it pay for itself and be more inclusive.
Fabulous. Thank you. And finally, another Sue Traherne. Hiya.
Hi, I'm from Greenwich Council. For me, it's just a reminder that we need to introduce a bit more fun into our engagement with budgets reducing and small teams and capacity. It's all a bit serious, and somehow we need to find a way to inject a bit more fun into it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I'm just going to share this finally before we go, which I always take inspiration from. Right, here we go. If I can actually get it to work. My favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead, and I think it sums up the importance, no matter how much you innovate, it all starts with people. And it says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And I just wanted to leave you with that thought that no matter how much we innovate, it's people that change, it's people that makes things matter, and that you matter and everyone you work with matters in making the change that we want to see. So be the change. Be the change you want to see. Thank you all for coming.
I say at the end of every tunnel, remember there's a train coming.
Like that one as well. And so enjoy the rest of your involvement week, and thank you all for coming. Goodbye now.